Jake was a human pilot who had seen many strange things in his life. But nothing could prepare him for what he was about to face on this new alien planet. The sky was dark with two suns, and strange purple plants covered the ground. Jake's ship landed with a soft thud, and the air smelled different, sharp, and strange. He checked his gear and stepped out carefully, knowing this world was not friendly. Jake's mission was simple: explore and gather information. But soon, he heard a soft sound, almost like a whimper. He followed the noise quietly, his heart beating faster. Hidden behind tall, glowing trees, he found a small cage. Inside was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. The creature was a girl, but not like any human girl. She had smooth, shiny skin that was a pale blue. Long tentacles curled softly from her head and shoulders. Her big eyes looked scared and tired. She watched Jake carefully, her body tense but not moving to attack. Jake's first thought was fear. She could kill me with those tentacles, he thought. His hand went to the sidearm on his belt, but the girl did not move aggressively. Instead, she blinked slowly and made a small, soft noise that sounded like a sigh. Jake lowered his hand slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said in a calm voice. The girl tilted her head, curious but still wary. Jake could see she was hurt. There were bruises on her arms, and her tentacles had small cuts. He looked around and saw no guards or other aliens. It seemed she was left alone, maybe forgotten. Jake's fear mixed with pity. Maybe she needs help, he thought. But helping a stranger on an alien world was dangerous. Jake knew the stories. Many humans had gone missing because they trusted the wrong aliens. This girl could be a trap. Still, Jake wanted to know more. He knelt by the cage and reached out his hands slowly. The girl watched him with big eyes, then reached out one tentacle. It touched his fingers gently. The touch was strange, soft and warm, but also gave Jake a feeling he could not explain. It was not fear or pain. It was calm and a little pleasure. Jake pulled his hand back in. Surprise. He was confused. What is she doing? He wondered. The girl gave a small smile, showing tiny, sharp teeth. It was not scary. It looked almost friendly. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from behind. Jake turned quickly. Dark figures moved between the trees, hostile aliens, armed and dangerous. They shouted in a strange language. Jake knew they were the ones who had captured the tentacled girl. He grabbed his sidearm, but did not want to fight if he could avoid it. The aliens stopped near the cage and yelled orders. The girl looked frightened again and shrank into a corner. Jake had a choice: run and leave the girl behind, or fight to save her and risk his life. Something inside him told him to stay. "I can't leave her here," he said quietly. With quick thinking, Jake pulled a small device from his belt, a flash grenade. He threw it towards the aliens. The bright light exploded, blinding them for a moment. Taking advantage of the confusion, Jake opened the cage's lock with a hacking tool he carried. The cage door swung open slowly. The tentacled girl looked at Jake. Then, without hesitation, she slipped out. Her tentacles moved quickly, wrapping around Jake's arm lightly, a strange but thankful gesture. Together, they ran through the forest, away from the angry aliens. Jake could hear shouts behind them, but the girl moved fast, her tentacles helping her climb and jump over obstacles. As they ran, Jake looked at the girl again. She was more than he expected. Her skin glowed faintly in the dark, and her eyes held a mix of fear and hope. Jake felt something strange again. The touch of her tentacles was not just physical. It was like she was sharing a secret with him, a secret he was just beginning to understand. For the first time in his life, Jake felt the fear inside him change to curiosity. He did not know what this alien girl would do next. Would she protect him or bring more danger? The night was dark, but Jake was no longer alone. The tentacled alien girl ran beside him, a strange, beautiful mystery in a dangerous world. And Jake was ready to face whatever came next. Jake and the tentacled alien girl, whom he quietly named Lyra, moved cautiously through the strange forest. The sounds of angry aliens shouting faded behind them, but Jake knew they were not safe yet. The alien world was full of dangers. And Jake's ship was still miles away. Lyra's tentacles twitched nervously as she walked beside Jake. She could not speak words like humans, but her large eyes told many stories. Jake watched her closely. She was not like any alien he had seen before. There was something gentle and kind hidden behind her strange appearance. Jake wanted to help her, but he did not know how. He pulled out some food he carried, simple protein bars from his pack, and offered one to Lyra. She looked at it with confusion, then slowly took it with a tentacle. Her eyes brightened as she tasted it. Jake smiled. "You're hungry, aren't you?" Lyra nodded slightly and made a soft clicking sound. Jake realized she was trying to communicate, but he had no idea how to understand her language. As they walked, Jake kept talking softly to her. "I'm Jake. What's your name?" Lyra looked shy. Then, with a small motion, she touched her chest and said, "Lyra." The sound was strange but gentle. Jake repeated the name. "Lyra, I like that." Suddenly, Lyra stopped and pointed with a tentacle at the ground. Jake looked down and saw strange tracks, footprints that did not look human or like the hostile. Aliens, they were fresh. "Someone is nearby," Jake whispered. Lyra's eyes grew wide with fear. She grabbed Jake's hand with her tentacle and pulled him behind a thick tree. Jake's heart beat fast. He saw a small group of creatures moving slowly ahead. They were different from the hostile aliens. Their faces looked sad and tired, but not dangerous. Jake thought maybe they were friendly. He took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the tree, showing his hands. "Hello," he said. The small group stopped and looked at Jake and Lyra. One of the creatures, a tall being with long ears, stepped forward. "You are human?" it asked in broken English. Jake nodded. "Yes, and this is Lyra. She is hurt. Can you help us?" The tall alien looked at Lyra closely. "She is from the Tentacle clan," he said softly. "They are rare and hunted by the Dark Hunters." Jake frowned. "Dark Hunters? Are they the ones chasing us?" The alien nodded. "Yes, they want to capture or kill all Tentacle clan. Lyra is lucky to be alive." Lyra looked down, her tentacles curling sadly. Jake wanted to comfort her, but he was not sure how. He touched her shoulder gently. She looked up and smiled faintly. The tall alien's name was Merrick. He said, "We can help you hide. Come with us." Jake hesitated, but saw the hope in Lyra's eyes. He agreed. They followed Merrick and his small group through hidden paths in the forest. The more Jake learned, the more he understood Lyra's world was dangerous. The Tentacle clan were peaceful, but hunted for their unique powers. That night, they reached a small cave hidden by vines. Inside, the air was warm and soft lights glowed from strange crystals in the walls. Lyra's eyes shone with relief. Merrick said, "This place is safe, for now." Jake sat down and looked at Lyra. She was tired, but curious. She touched Jake's hand again, and the strange, warm feeling returned. Jake was puzzled, but didn't pull away. Merrick spoke again. "The Tentacle clan can sense feelings through touch. That is why you feel calm and pleasure when Lyra touches you." Jake blinked. "Pleasure? I thought it was just fear or pain." Merrick smiled sadly. "No, it is their way to connect and comfort. But it is rare for humans to feel it so quickly." Jake looked at Lyra, who was watching him with soft eyes. I want to help her. She's not dangerous. She's just scared. Suddenly, Lyra made a small noise and pointed at Jake's arm. Jake looked down and saw faint glowing marks where her tentacles had touched him. The marks pulsed gently with light. What is this? Jake asked, alarmed. Merrick explained, It is a bond mark. It shows trust and connection. It means Lyra has chosen you. Jake felt a mix of surprise and honor. Chosen me? Yes, Merrick said. It is rare, but important. It means you will protect her, and she will protect you. Jake looked at Lyra and smiled. I will. The night passed with quiet talks and shared stories. Jake learned that Lyra's clan had been attacked many times. She was captured while trying to escape, but her spirit was strong. Jake felt a new respect and a strange attraction to her. The fear he had at first was slowly changing into something else: hope, trust, and even pleasure. But danger was not. Gone. Jake knew the Dark Hunters would come back. He had to be ready. As he looked at Lyra, sleeping peacefully, Jake whispered, I will keep you safe. And for the first time, he felt like he was not alone on this alien planet. The next morning, the soft light of the twin suns peeked through the cave entrance. Jake woke up first. He looked around. Lyra was still asleep, her tentacles gently resting on the soft moss floor. For a moment, Jake just watched her. Strange, delicate face showed no sign of the danger they had escaped. Jake stood up and stretched. His muscles ached from the long run last night, but his mind was busy. How could he protect Lyra? How could he understand this strange alien girl who had touched his heart and something deeper inside him? He stepped outside the cave. The forest looked calmer in the daylight, but Jake knew it could hide many threats. Merrick and the other friends were already awake, preparing for the day. Jake joined them quietly. Merrick smiled and said, You are learning fast. Lyra trusts you more each day. Jake nodded. I want to help her. I still don't understand her fully. Then Lyra appeared at the cave mouth. She was dressed in simple clothes made from leaves and vines. Her skin glowed softly in the morning light. She looked at Jake with those big eyes full of hope and fear. Jake smiled. Good morning, Lyra. Ready to move? Lyra nodded and made soft clicking sounds. Jake guessed she was saying yes. He reached out his hand, and she took it gently. With one tentacle dot as they walked through the forest. Jake tried to learn about Lyra. He asked simple questions, but she only answered with gestures or sounds. Still, they understood each other more every day. Suddenly, Lyra stopped and looked tense. She pointed to a clearing ahead. Jake saw strange machines lying half-buried in the dirt. They looked old and broken, like relics from a forgotten war. Jake knelt down to examine them. These machines, they could be dangerous or maybe useful. Lyra touched one machine with a tentacle and made a noise like a warning. Jake nodded. We must be careful. As they moved past the clearing, Jake felt Lyra's tentacles brush his arm softly. The strange, warm feeling returned, and Jake smiled. The bond between them was growing stronger. Later, they reached a small river. Jake knelt by the water and drank deeply. Lyra did the same, her tentacles trailing in the cool flow. Suddenly, she stopped and looked upstream. Jake followed her gaze and saw figures moving slowly toward them. Enemies, Jake whispered. Lyra nodded, her eyes wide with alarm. She pulled Jake behind a rock dot. From the trees emerged a group of Dark Hunters. They wore black armor and carried strange weapons. Their faces were hidden by helmets, but Jake could feel their cold, cruel intent. Jake's heart raced. He looked at Lyra. She was scared but ready. Her tentacles moved in slow, graceful waves, a sign Jake had learned meant. She was preparing to defend. Jake grabbed his weapon, but Lyra stopped him with a gentle touch. her tentacles wrapped lightly around his wrist, calming him. The dark hunters stopped near the river and spoke in a harsh language. One stepped forward and shouted, "Find the tentacle. Bring her alive." Jake felt anger rise. He stepped out and shouted, "Leave her alone. You won't take her." The dark hunters laughed. "Human fool, stay out of this." Jake knew he was outnumbered. But he had Lyra's trust now. He would not let her be captured again. Suddenly, Lyra's tentacles surged forward like lightning. They wrapped around one dark hunter's weapon, crushing it. Another tentacle grabbed a second hunter and threw him to the ground. Jake was shocked. Lyra's strength was more than he imagined. Together, they fought. Jake used his weapon carefully, trying not to hurt Lyra or the forest. After a fierce battle, dark hunters retreated, leaving Jake and Lyra alone by the river. Jake looked at her, breathless. "You're amazing." Lyra smiled shyly and touched his cheek softly. The warm pleasure returned, and Jake felt a deep connection. That night, by the campfire, Jake and Lyra shared a quiet moment. Jake knew their trust had grown. They were no longer just allies. They were friends. But Jake also knew the danger was far from over. The dark hunters would return, and they had to be ready. He looked at Lyra, sleeping nearby. Her breathing was, but Jake's mind raced with plans. "I will protect you," he whispered, "no matter what." The morning sun filtered through the thick leaves, casting soft patterns on the ground. Jake and Lyra had been hiding in the cave for 2 days now. The forest around them was alive with sounds, strange birds, buzzing insects, and distant echoes. But beneath this calm, danger waited. Jake knew they could not stay in one place. The dark hunters would come back, stronger and more prepared. They needed a plan to escape the forest and find safety. He sat beside Lyra, who was carefully cleaning her small wounds. Her tentacles moved slowly and gracefully, but Jake noticed a faint scar near her shoulder. She flinched when she touched it. Jake reached out and gently held her hand. "We have to get out of here," he said softly. "Can you walk far?" Lyra nodded but looked worried. She used her tentacles to show Jake the path she thought was safe through the thickest parts of the forest. Away from the main roads, Jake studied a small map on his wrist device. It showed the location of his ship, several kilometers away. They would have to cross dangerous territory to reach it. "We have no choice," Jake said. "We'll move at night. It's safer in the dark." Lyra's eyes shone with determination. She wrapped her tentacles around Jake's arm, sharing a warm, calming energy. Jake felt strength flow into him. They spent the day preparing. Jake checked his weapons and supplies. Lyra gathered medicinal plants from the cave to help heal her wounds. As night fell, they moved quietly through the forest. Lyra's tentacles brushed softly against the leaves, sensing every movement. Jake followed closely, trusting her instincts. Suddenly, a rustling noise came from the bushes. Jake stopped and raised his weapon. Lyra tensed beside him. A small creature, no bigger than a rabbit but covered in shining scales, hopped into the moonlight. It looked at them with curious eyes, then darted away. Jake exhaled slowly. Just a wild animal. They continued deeper into the forest, moving fast but carefully. Jake noticed how Lyra used her tentacles, not just for defense, but to help him, lifting him over rocks, clearing paths, even feeling for danger ahead. Hours passed, and Jake felt exhaustion creep in. But every time he looked at Lyra, her calm eyes gave him hope. Suddenly, they reached a wide clearing. Jake could see the lights of his ship shining faintly in the distance. "Almost there," he whispered. But before they could move forward, a bright beam of light cut through the trees. The dark hunters had found them. Jake grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run!" They sprinted toward the ship, but the hunters were close behind. Lyra's tentacles moved like whips, knocking down trees and slowing. Their pursuers Jake reached the ship's ramp and helped Lyra climb inside. As the engines hummed to life, the hunters fired their weapons. But the ship's shields held strong. Jake piloted the ship quickly away from the forest. Lyra sat beside him, her breathing heavy but steady. Jake looked at her and smiled. "We made it?" Lyra touched his cheek gently, and Jake felt that strange, warm pleasure again. Safer now, but Jake knew this was only the beginning. The bond between him and Lyra was growing, but so was the danger as the stars stretched out before. "Them," Jake whispered. "Together, we'll face whatever comes next." The stars stretched across the sky like a silver river as Jake piloted the small ship through the dark void of space. Inside, the hum of the engine was steady, but Jake's mind was anything but calm. Behind them, the Dark Hunter's fleet was closing fast. Lyra sat beside him, her tentacles curled tightly around her knees. She had never traveled through space before, and the bright blinking lights of the ship fascinated her. But her eyes held worry. Jake reached over and gently touched one of her tentacles. The warmth from her skin flowed into his hand, calming his nerves. "We can lose them," Jake said quietly, "but only if we work together." Lyra nodded, then reached out with a tentacle to touch the ship's control panel. Jake blinked in. Surprise! Her skin glowed faintly, and the console lit up with strange symbols. "What are you doing?" Jake asked. Lyra smiled shyly. "Help. Ship safe." Jake realized that Lyra's unique powers could interact with technology. It was a gift. And a weapon. He let her guide him through the controls. Her tentacles moving quickly over the buttons and touchscreens. Suddenly, alarms blared. "Warning, pursuers detected." The ship's computer announced. Jake's heart pounded. The Dark Hunters were close. But thanks to Lyra's help, the ship's shields had been boosted, and their engines pushed into overdrive outside the viewport. Streaks of light showed the enemy ships accelerating. "We need a plan," Jake said. "Can you help me find a way to lose them?" Lyra's eyes brightened. She tapped on the console, then pointed at a blinking dot on the map, a nearby asteroid field. "Hide," she said simply. Jake nodded. "Good idea." With expert skill, Jake steered the ship toward the asteroid field. The rocky debris floated silently in the dark, a dangerous maze for any pilot. The Dark Hunters followed, their ships sleek and deadly. Jake's hands were steady, but the pressure was immense. Lyra reached out and wrapped a tentacle around Jake's arm. The warm touch gave him strength. Together, they navigated the twisting paths between giant rocks. Suddenly, a huge asteroid loomed ahead. Jake veered sharply, the ship groaning under the stress. Behind them, one of the enemy ships clipped a rock and exploded in a ball of fire. Lyra let out a soft, relieved sound, but the chase was not over. More enemy ships appeared, cutting off their escape routes. Jake realized they were trapped. "Lyra, can your power help us now?" Jake asked. Lyra closed her eyes and focused. Her tentacles glowed brighter, and a wave of energy pulsed through the ship. The control panels flickered, and the ship's speed surged. A shield of shimmering light surrounded them. The Dark Hunters fired their weapons, but the energy shield absorbed every blast. Jake smiled. "We're not just running, we're fighting back." Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected a nearby space station, an old abandoned facility. "We can dock there," Jake said. "Maybe hide and repair." Lyra nodded eagerly. They raced toward the station. The enemy fleet, hot on their trail. Inside the station, dark and silent, Jake and Lyra moved quickly. The ship was damaged, and the alarms warned of systems failing. Lyra touched the broken panels with her tentacles, and her glowing skin lit the room. Slowly, the ship's systems began to stabilize. Jake worked alongside her, repairing wires and checking engines. Hours passed. Outside, the enemy ships circled, waiting. Finally, the ship was ready. Jake looked at Lyra, tired but determined. "We can do this?" Lyra smiled, her tentacles curling around Jake's hand as the ship lifted off from the station. Jake felt something stronger than fear, hope. Together, they could face any danger. The chase was not over. But neither was their fight. After escaping the space station, Jake and Lyra found a quiet planet to rest on. The sky was painted with soft pink and orange hues, and gentle winds moved the tall grass around them. For the first time in days, Jake felt a moment of peace. They set up a small camp near a sparkling lake. Lyra sat quietly, her tentacles brushing the water's surface, watching the ripples dance. Jake lit a small fire and cooked some simple food. As they ate, Jake looked at Lyra. She was beautiful in a way he never imagined, not just her glowing skin or tentacles, but her spirit. She was brave, kind, and strangely gentle. Jake smiled and said, "You've been through so much, but you're still strong." Lyra looked at him with big eyes. She reached out one tentacle and touched Jake's hand softly. The warm feeling spread. Through him again, a comforting and tender sensation. Jake laughed softly. "You're full of surprises." Later, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jake lay back and looked at the stars. Lyra sat beside him, her tentacles resting lightly on his chest. "I never thought I'd feel this way," Jake said quietly. "About an alien. ... About you?" Lyra tilted her head as if trying to understand. Jake took a deep breath. "You made me feel safe when everything was falling apart. Your touch, it's different. It's like you're sharing your soul with me." Lyra's eyes shone brighter. She moved closer, wrapping her tentacles gently around Jake's arm. Suddenly, a soft glow appeared on her skin, pulsing with light. Jake reached out and touched her face. Her skin was warm, almost like fire, but comforting. "Is this how your people show love?" Jake asked softly. Lyra nodded and made a small, happy sound. They sat together in silence, connected by something deeper than words. Jake felt his fear melt away, replaced by a growing hope. But even in this quiet moment, danger was not far. Jake knew the Dark Hunters would not stop searching. They had to be ready. As night fell, Jake held Lyra close. Her tentacles wrapped around him protectively. "I promise," Jake whispered. "I will protect you, no matter what." Lyra smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. For the first time, Jake believed that maybe, together, they could build a new life, one filled with trust, warmth, and unexpected love. The ship landed softly on the surface of a distant planet, bathed in gentle golden light. Jake stepped out first, holding Lyra's hand in his. The air smelled fresh and warm, unlike the cold dangers they had faced before. This planet was different. It was peaceful, home to a small group of friendly aliens who welcomed Jake and Lyra with open arms. The aliens were kind and curious, eager to hear their story, but careful not to ask too much. Jake looked at Lyra, who smiled shyly, but with a new confidence. The bond between them was stronger than ever. The glowing marks on Jake's arm pulsed gently, a symbol of their trust and connection. Days passed, and Jake helped the aliens repair their technology while Lyra learned their language and customs. She laughed more now, her tentacles moving, with joy rather than fear. One evening, as the twin moons rose in the sky, Jake and Lyra sat together on a hill overlooking the peaceful village. Lyra rested her head on Jake's shoulder, and he wrapped an arm around her. "We survived so much," Jake said softly. "I never thought I'd find someone like you." Lyra's eyes sparkled. She touched Jake's cheek gently. "You saved me." Jake smiled. "No, you saved me." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. The dangers of the past felt far away here, but Jake knew the universe was vast and threats could come again. Yet, with Lyra beside him, he felt ready for anything. Their story was not just about escape or survival anymore. It was about hope, trust, and a new life together. As the night grew deep, Jake whispered, "This is our new beginning." Lyra smiled and wrapped her tentacles around him. Together, they faced the unknown. No longer just a human and an alien, but partners in a world full of endless possibilities.